Is there a viable alternative to iPhones and Samsung Galaxies, especially now that both come with improved battery life? We've got 5 phones here on the table and one of them really wants to prove itself. That phone is the OnePlus 11 and it has the same flagship chip as the Galaxy S23 series, but it only costs $700. And yes, it also has a massive 5000 mAh battery. We also have the Pixel 7 Pro, the Galaxy S23 Ultra also rocking the same battery size. Then we have the S23 Plus, which has a smaller battery, and the iPhone 14 Pro Max, which has yet smaller battery capacity. Hey guys, my name is Vic with PhoneArena, and let's see how the OnePlus 11 battery life looks in such fierce competition. And to measure this, we have already started our web browsing battery test, where we have a script loading a set of web pages and scrolling around. So this test is not very demanding and just shows how your battery will drain with very light use. And for reference, if a phone gets around 12 to 13 hours on it, that's barely okay. If it can get 14 to 15 hours, that's already good. If it gets 16 hours or more, it's very good. And if it scores more than 18 hours, this is straight up amazing. So just a quick reminder here that we have set the brightness level on all phones to the same level, and also you're not seeing the actual test run, but just an illustration of what it looks like since the test takes long hours. With this in mind, let's zip forward and stop it right here as we see the black screen on the OnePlus 11. And the time on the clock is 13 hours and 22 minutes, which is an okay result, but definitely not very impressive. So we flip it over and keep on going to see how the other phones rank in this test. And next up we have the Pixel 7 Pro tap out, and it finishes at 14 hours and 19 minutes, nearly a full hour more than the OnePlus 11, which is a better score. But let's keep rolling, and we have to wait for quite a bit longer until we see the next phone die, and that is the Galaxy S23 Plus, which scores 16 hours and 37 minutes. Now this is a very good score and a big improvement already. Now let me also take a moment here to remind you to click that subscribe button so you don't miss our future videos. So it's the Galaxy S23 Ultra and the iPhone that still have plenty of juice left, and again we wait until one of them dies, and the first one to do so is the Galaxy S23 Ultra with a score of a whopping 18 hours and 57 minutes, which is straight up amazing. But it is outlasted just barely by the iPhone 14 Pro Max, which soon finishes with a score of 19 hours and 5 minutes. Alright, let's recap these scores in a chart, and you can see that our hopes for the OnePlus 11 battery life were squandered as it ranks last with a barely decent showing on the web browsing test. But we don't want to rely on just one test, and since most of us are also watching a ton of video, we have created this YouTube video streaming test where we play the same playlist on all of the phones, and some phones actually do really well on this test. So we have once again all phones lined up, fully charged, ready to go, and we kick off this test. And as a reference, for this test, scores below 6 hours are not all that good. Anything above 6 hours is decent, 7 hours is good, 8 hours is solid, and more than 9 hours is great. And just as before, we will fast forward the test so you don't have to wait for hours, and we just skip to the part where the phones die so you can see the results. So the first one to tap out on this test is actually the Galaxy S23 Plus, with a score of 8 hours and 15 minutes, which ranks as a solid score, so we flip it over. The OnePlus 11 is still running, but not for too long, as it taps out right here and it lasted 8 hours and 23 minutes, just slightly better than the Galaxy S23 Plus, but it also goes in the solid category on this test, so definitely a better showing than on the browsing test. So let's keep on going, and we stop right here as we see the black screen now on the Galaxy S23 Ultra, which was a bit of a surprise since it did so well on the previous test. But here it dies with a score of 8 hours and 54 minutes. So this time we've got the Pixel 7 Pro and the iPhone 14 Pro Max left fighting for the first place on this test. So let's zip forward and we see that the Pixel taps out first at exactly 9 hours and 39 minutes, and the iPhone actually still has a good amount of charge left. So we have to wait it out, and finally it finishes this test with a score of the impressive 11 hours. Now once again, take a look at this ranking chart. It is really impressive how Apple scores so high despite this iPhone having the smallest physical battery size. But what about the OnePlus 11? Well, we certainly expected a bit more out of it, especially considering that it has a 5000 mAh battery. But unfortunately, it scored barely okay on our web browsing test, and while it had a good showing on the YouTube test, it still wasn't in the top 3, so it ranks last. At number 4, we have the Galaxy S23 Plus, which is an improvement over its predecessor, and it beat the OnePlus by a good margin on the browsing test and lost only slightly in the YouTube video streaming test. At number 3, we have the Pixel 7 Pro, and Google's flagship definitely impressed us with how long it survived our YouTube test, but it was not as good on the browsing test. So at number 2 we have the Galaxy S23 Ultra, which has seen a huge improvement in battery life and is now among the longest lasting phones out there. But the winner remains the iPhone 14 Pro Max, which won both of our tests and is just an incredibly well optimized device when it comes to battery life. So there you have it, our OnePlus 11 battery test results. But what do you have to say about the OnePlus 11? We'd love to hear those who own the phone chime in with their battery experience and whether you guys are actually happy with this otherwise very affordable and pretty good looking phone. So I'm looking forward to your comments. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. My name is Vic, this is PhoneArena, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.